Hello, I'm Julie Swenson, Managing Director of Forward Theater Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And I'm Mike Fisher, Milwaukee-based theater writer and dramaturg.
And I'm Jen Uphoff-Gray, founder and artistic director of Forward Theater Company. And this is Theater Forward, a monthly conversation about theater from a local, regional, and national perspective. From Madison to Manhattan, we're excited to share insights into our own company while exploring issues surrounding theater in the Midwest and around the country. Welcome to episode 129 of Theater Forward.
Great.
In this episode, we are marking the return of World Premiere Wisconsin, bigger and better than ever, with a conversation about dramaturgy and new plays. Our guest for this conversation is Deanie Vallone, a freelance dramaturg, playwright, and author. Deanie is one of our World Premiere Wisconsin board members and has shepherded many brilliant plays from the page to the stage. Welcome, Deanie.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to have you here. Deanie, we have to start this conversation with your very favorite question. And that is, what is a dramaturg?
Oh, no. It's funny because I sort of asked, do I have to prepare anything for this conversation ahead of time? And you're like, no. And I really should have prepared for this one. Let's be honest. This is a tricky question. I think what I love about the job of being a dramaturg is that it's so varied and vast, and it's a bit of a chameleon role in the theater world. But it does make distilling it down for folks challenging. I think when I'm talking to people outside of theater who kind of have no concept, I sometimes, especially in the new play development world, I'll equate it to being like a book editor. That part of the job is working very closely with a writer to help bring their story from idea to page to stage. And so that's crafting conversations around the piece, talking about goals and big themes, etc. But I think in a broader sense, I like to think of dramaturgs as advocates for the work, champions for the work of helping actualize both the writer's vision for the work, but then the director's vision, the institution's vision, of being able to keep all of these really big intentions and ideas at the forefront at the same time, which can be very tricky, and making sure that those all coalesce in a way that can be really understood and felt deeply by an audience, which even describing it now feels like a really kind of vague and heady way of talking about dramaturgy. But I think sort of on the nitty-gritty side, there's a lot of what people know about it, the research and the editing and the working with the script and, looking up stuff, being a human Google, which I think is kind of a false analogy, but kind of funny. But then there's also just the very close care and shepherding of a script. My mentor, dramaturgy mentor, Gavin Witt, said it's a bit like being a Sherpa or a doula of helping birth or shepherd a new play to the top of the mountain.
So, Deanie, you've already kind of started to answer this, but what are some of the specific ways in which you would support a play as you've described in the room? Or if you feel like you've already tackled a lot of that, what is a specific challenge that comes up a lot that gets in the way of you feeling like you can do the job that you need to do as a dramaturg?
Yeah, I think that a really big role is helping, again, having been sort of on the other side of this myself as a writer, it can be very hard to keep both momentum and all the moving parts in place over a long period of time. Developing new work can take years and years and years and years. And there's a lot of things that can just sort of disrupt the rail line for the train, whether it's other projects or life events or, just lack of opportunities. And so I think that part of how I can support a play is helping keep keep the train on the track, whether that's being an accountability partner for a writer, helping keep goals at the forefront and making sure that there are steps in place for those goals to be achieved, being a champion. I'm working with a freelance writer right now, and I've been working with her since 2022 on the same play. It's gone through a lot of iterations. She's had a lot of other feedback. And I just had a meeting with her a couple days ago, and it was an opportunity for me to read the new script. And I gave her a lot of positive feedback, and I gave her like 2 big notes to focus on and gave her some sort of steps for the next few months. And she wrote to me afterwards and was just so grateful she said like the spark had been reinvigorated for her. I think it can be really hard to keep enthusiasm for your own work after a while. You're like, possibly this is the worst thing I ever wrote. It's really hard to tell after a while.
Right.
And so I think from a developmental point of view, being able to, just keep the writer writing is a big thing. And I would say to your other question that a big challenge is when you get a lot of different collaborators and voices into the room. Again, this is what theater is meant to be. So it's wonderful. And I do think can be really useful for a writer not to just be in their own world and in their own head and have that feedback. But once you get a director, you get cast in the room, or an institution is developing it, and everybody has their own ideas and their own priorities for a piece, which kind of as they should, it can be hard for a writer to get pulled in different directions, to know where to put their focus, to know what they actually think and feel and want. And so again, I think a dramaturg can be a great way to not only remind them of like, what were your goals? Why did you come to this piece? But also help facilitate conversations between the different parties and make sure that, things, wires aren't getting crossed, things aren't getting misrepresented, and that everybody is sort of getting heard, and hopefully we come to a happy medium. So yeah, it can get, it's wonderful if a piece gets that far and is getting produced, but suddenly, a lot of cooks in the kitchen can lead to a little bit of a mess, but also sometimes a wonderful 9-course meal. So
well done on the analogy. I want to kind of follow that thread of the conversation a little more, and just thinking about the delicacy of the dramaturg's job when a play is actually moving towards production, especially when, as you said, you're there to support the playwright's vision and help them actualize it. But now you do start to have other voices and important voices, whether it's the director of the piece, the artistic or managing directors of the theater who are producing this, the producers if it's a commercial piece, folks who have a real stake in what the end product, or at least the end product for that first production is going to be, and how to keep clarity for yourself as the dramaturg of which directions to go if you're being advised, if the playwright is being advised a lot of different ways. If their gut is saying, I want to go down this path, and the producer and or director are saying it really needs to be this other path. And how do you navigate advocating for the playwright and the piece?
Oof, it's challenging. It's really challenging. I think that so much of it distills down to, we may end up touching on, best practices in this conversation. And I think some of the best practices are the most basic and the most challenging, which is, communication. I think that every relationship between a writer, institution, dramaturg is different. And I think it really varies between how, has the writer worked? Have they had their piece produced at an institution? Have they had their piece produced at an institution of a certain type or size? Has the theater produced new work before? Have they had to actively work with writers? Have they worked with dramaturgs, et cetera? Because I think miscommunication can happen when a writer has never had to do, to have their piece produced or deal with an institution. And literally they don't know what they don't know, and kind of the opposite way as well. So I think that, ideally you are getting the play as far as it can go before it's getting produced, right? We talk about this sort of in the book world of like when to send a book to an agent is when you have gotten it as far as you can get on your own. And so I think that there has to be some understanding that an institution is going to be putting their input onto a piece and shaping it because they have specific needs for their space, their budget, their audiences, the artists that they use. And so I think part of a dramaturg's job could be helping frame that for a dramaturg or for a playwright. But also helping come in with very clear goals and expectations of what the writer intends and needs and what is going to be provided. So if a writer is coming in thinking that they're going to have, the whole first week to keep writing this play, but the institution is like, no, we have to start staging right away. I think that's where things can go sideways. Or, the director is like, everybody is going to be clowns, and the writer is like, wait a minute, what? that would be pretty bad if you'd gotten that far and didn't know that. Yeah. This is I don't feel like I'm answering this question super well, but I do think it's tricky, and I think that this is going to be an area that you have to cut. I'm like, I had a thought.
We don't know that yet.
Oh, great. This is what it's really like being a dramaturg, is being like, great question. I'm going to think about that and come back to you. But no, I think that, I'm sort of the mind, if it's a new play, that as a dramaturg, my job is always to support the playwright. But I do also firmly believe that a dramaturg can be a very essential collaborator with a director. Mm-hmm. And that part of a dramaturg's job, especially if the writer isn't in the room, is then to support the director's vision for the play and help be a sort of stand-in voice for the writer who is not there. So I think it's balance. It's a lot of balance. It's a lot of facilitation. It's a lot of, and this is where I think it can be very helpful for dramaturgs to have experience in institutions, to be able to speak to the realities of, at the end of the day, it's a lot of times it's about schedules, and it's about money, and it's about whether the tech works, or how many union stagehands we have, and how many wardrobe people we have, and how to be mindful of that and support that without letting it interfere with like the heart and the art, I guess.
Deanie, I have a question about you being also a playwright and dramaturg, and like last season, very successful production of The Crack at Milwaukee Rep, written in collaboration with Mark Clements. Were you also the dramaturg for that show? Or did you pull somebody in to dramaturg your show? What'd you do?
I was not the dramaturg, and I needed one. It was very funny kind of being on the other side of the table, that I learned a lot. Actually, I learned a lot about, I think, how to be a better dramaturg, but also just like what it feels like being in the other. Like, we did a workshop the summer before it got produced, and I was so excited. And whenever I do a workshop as a dramaturg, I'm always so excited. I'm like, oh, this is great. It's just like time to play and explore. It was the most stressful week of my life. There's a photo of me. It was my birthday. It was on my birthday. I'm laying like on the floor of the hub at the rep with my like arms over my face, just having a like moment. And listen, it ended up being wonderful. And it was, had so many brilliant people in the room who helped shape it. But it's a very emotional, very vulnerable process. The first time, it was a first draft, most of the people I didn't know in the room, and now are, wonderful collaborators who I trust and love. But it really, I was like, oh, okay, this can be a really intense, and there was so much work and so much rewriting at night, and it was very exhausting. And now every writer has different experiences. But I was like, okay, this has kind of made me rethink what the process is. And also the week kind of went sideways. Like, we thought we were going to work on XYZ, and then we ended up rewriting like a huge chunk of the play during the course of that week and had to pivot. And so I learned so much about flexibility and the needs of the writer of the time. And so we went through that process, and I was like, I really need a dramaturg. In part, like, I needed somebody who was kind of just available, who was assigned to support me. I know that kind of sounds weird or bad. I don't know. But it was like, there were tons of people at the rep who, would have read drafts or would have been available, but they had other things to do. And so I needed somebody who's like, this is your job. If I have a script for you to read, you're going to read it when I need you to read it. And you're going to respond. If I ask, I need positive feedback. I need to know what's working. I need to know what questions you have. Like, they're there to support me. And so got the rep's literary director, Annika Perez-Krikorian, who is a fantastic artist. And she ended up being the dramaturg for the show. I can't remember exactly when she came on. I think it was after the workshop, but she was dramaturg through the production. And it was just incredibly helpful to have somebody, again, to like read drafts, offer feedback, for me to bounce ideas off of, to just, again, to remind me, like, it's going to work out. It may feel like a mess now, but I promise you're going to get it there. It's going to be okay. And then I was in the room, and there was something, that we were doing. There was like a choice that Mark Clements was directing it. And he was doing something with the microphones that, just want to say, ended up being a wonderful choice that helped shape the show. But I got really in my head about it. And I was like, Annika, I need you to tell me if I'm being stupid about this. And she's like, you're being stupid about this. So just calm down. And I was like, Thank you. And, it was really great. So I, even as a dramaturg myself, I think it allowed me, and this is why I'm a little bit, depending on the circumstance, I'm usually an advocate for a writer not also directing or acting in their own show, unless that is like a very central, if it's a one-person show, because it can be really hard to wear multiple hats. And I, especially on a new play, I really want the writer to be able to just be a writer in the room. And I was really grateful that I could just be a writer in the room.
So, Deanie, you've kind of answered. I was going to share with you a true life anecdote of a playwright who I had a conversation with, who had a play that was getting its world premiere in the last 2 years. And he said, Mike, I don't need a dramaturg. I did all that work already. I'm the writer, da, 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 da. Now, you've kind of answered that, but you get a variation of that. I'm sure you've heard this as a dramaturg, where, especially with an existing play. So we're not talking about a new play now. You're talking about Chekhov or something. And a director will say, or somebody on behalf of the director will say, well, that's the director's job. There's not really anything, money's tight. There's nothing really that you can add to what the director's already on his or her own able to do. What are your thoughts on that? How do you respond to that when you've had versions, however more politely framed than the way I just said it, of that conversation?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There's like a little anecdote from something else that I saw online that was something about like a woman was like loading a bunch of stuff into her car, and it was like she was hauling a bunch of stuff and trying to get the car to open and blah, blah. And another woman was like, do you need help with that? And the one was like, no, I can do it. And the other lady was like, I know you can do it, but you don't have to do it by yourself. And I think that that's kind of the case with directors. I mean, again, I am not a director, so I have never been, in those shoes and know exactly what that's like. But from what I have experienced, working alongside directors, is there's a lot on their plate, and it's not just the dramaturgy, and it's not just the bringing the play to life. They are coordinating all of the design elements, and they're working, and if they're also affiliated with an institution, likely they're also still doing their full job and managing budgets and schedules and the needs of other people and yada, yada. And I think that on the one hand, or like one element of it is that I think a dramaturg can help carry the weight and take some of that off their plate. And it's just one more thing that a director does not have to be on top of 100%. And it is a thing. And sort of secondly, it is a thing that can be really helpful to not have to be the sole bearer of. I think, again, a dramaturg can be a second set of eyes and a stand-in audience and an advocate for the play. And, it can be hard to be sort of in a vacuum of your own ideas and thoughts. Again, like, could I have written, and, Mark and I have written The Crack just by ourselves without any outside feedback? Yeah. And we would have created something, but is it better because we had outside feedback? Absolutely. And so I think it's the same. Like, a director absolutely could put on an excellent play, and many, many do. But I think that the work could be lighter. And also, I think the work could be stronger with another set of eyes and another kind of smart, creative brain to help. And again, I think it can also just be, I don't know. I feel a bit like the more, not necessarily the more the merrier, but there is a lot of stuff I'm sure directors would love to have prepared or look up or do or provide that they just do not have capacity for, or possibly even necessarily have interest in or resources or whatever. And I think dramaturgs can be really helpful to kind of fill in the gaps there. And a bit what I said earlier, I believe that the directors are working on these scenes, and they're have lots of different pieces they're connecting, and it can sometimes be really hard to see the forest for the trees. And a dramaturg is a great person to kind of keep that big vision, and the same that they would do with a writer, remind you, like, this is what your original vision was when we talked about it. This is what you had mentioned to me during table work. This is why you chose to do this thing here. It's okay if you don't like it anymore, but this is what you were originally thinking. And, to be somebody to help keep the train on the tracks. I think a second set of eyes never hurts.
It's a beautiful reminder that all artists have those dark nights of the soul. Playwrights, directors, actors, designers,
right?
Where you suddenly
not all
go
happening at the same time.
Right.
Exactly.
You suddenly go,
times.
oh, my work is terrible. What was I thinking?
Yeah. Honestly, it's week 3. I feel like week 3. Every director
week 2
I work with
for actors.
Yes. No, actors too.
Actors are week 2 because that's when they're trying to get off book. Directors are week 3.
Yeah.
Truth. I love that, Deanie. Yeah. So true. All of that as a director. Let's talk a little, again, part of the reasoning behind our timing of this conversation is to celebrate the return of World Premiere Wisconsin, which is running the entire calendar year of 2026. There are going to be new plays and musicals happening all over the state. The first one's already happened.
Yep.
Others are opening this week. It is new theater popping up all over. And so let's talk a little bit with your hat on that is partially dramaturg, but also from your time on staff at the Rep of helping to shepherd new works. What are some best practices as new work is being developed? Thinking bigger picture, not just what a dramaturg would do in the room, but what institutions, theater companies can do to help birth new work in the best ways possible.
Yeah, I think something that I really appreciated about the Rep's approach to new work, which I will frame by saying obviously is a very large institution with a lot of resources and money, which can really affect how you develop new work.
Yup.
But they very much led, and I presume, and from what I've seen, still sort of lead with an approach of asking the writer what they need. Every writer is different, and I think the ability to be flexible and adaptive to how a writer works or what the specific play needs is really setting it up for success. And so whether that is, I need somebody who is available to read a new draft every 3 months, or when I need a workshop after the second draft to be able to hear the play. And it would be really great if a musician could be in the room too and play some music that goes with it or whatever. I really would like to, movement is a huge part of this. And so I don't actually need to hear the script read out loud yet, but I would love to sort of play around with the movement of it or whatever. I think, presuming that all plays can be fit into the same box or use the same cookie cutter approach doesn't serve them well and can really lead to frustration and sort of butting heads in the room. Now, obviously, again, it's all about communication because, I think it's great to start with a conversation like that, regardless of what your resources and finances are. And then, if it's like, okay, we can't actually afford to have, a marching band in the room for you. But like, what is it that you're trying to learn from this? What would be helpful? This is what we can offer. Or would it be really helpful if you went and saw some marching bands and maybe, we can arrange for you to go see this, whatever. I think it's just being really clear about what an institution can provide. And it's okay if it's not a lot. If it's just like, hey, we can read some scripts and offer feedback, and we can get some non-equity actors on a Zoom to read your play. Does that work? What are you trying to learn, and how can we achieve what you need as far as development goes? And so just like, again, being as flexible as possible but that is within the needs of the institution. And that's, again, where communication comes in. And it's like, we can be flexible, but we have to have the final script by December 1st. So if the other drafts come in kind of, whatever before that, then that's okay. But so I think, again, it's again, even if a writer has worked with institutions before, every institution is different. And so being really communicative about like, this is how our institution works. Here's how we, normally develop new work. This is our experience with it. This is what we normally offer. What do you need? How does this fit in? What could be useful to you? And that includes like, who do you need? I was talking to a writer recently who was developing a new work and, talking about it getting produced. And I was like, you can ask for a dramaturg, like ask for what you need. And she was just like, really? It's like, yes. It's not to say like writers have all the power, but like if an institution really wants to do your play and they have enough advance notice, they probably can, adjust to fit what it is that you need within reason. So I think that it definitely empowering, on the other side, empowering writers to ask for what they need on top of asking, institutions to ask them is important. Mm-hmm. And now we've reached the stage where I've forgotten what the original question was.
So. No, you were there on best practices.
You were there.
And best practices. Fabulous.
Yeah, no, and I agree completely about the communication part, and the negotiation feels too corporate a word for this, but the back and forth dialogue about what do you need and what are our resources, right? And they're the sort of first the platinum class approach may or may not be within the resources or capacity of every theater, but that doesn't mean that you can't creatively find a way to address the core needs. We're creative. That's what we do in the theater is we look at that and what kind of thing gets us where we want to be. And if you're making the decision, this is an institution that I want to work with as a playwright, or as an institution, this is a playwright we want to work with. This is a play we want to see develop. If the relationship feels worthwhile from both sides, then you talk and you figure it out. How do we get there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Talk about the problem I hear playwrights talk about all the time, and I see it as a director as well, of workshopping a play to death.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it definitely can happen. I mean, I'm thinking a little bit about this play that I'm working on as a freelance. I don't know if it's been workshopped to death, but I definitely think that it's been feedbacked to death by various people. Yeah, I mean, it can be really, it seems from my experience of seeing other playwrights, it can be very frustrating. It's exciting, but frustrating to keep getting developmental opportunities because they lead to more stuff, but never getting that production, sort of like always the bridesmaid, never the bride, as they say. I mean, I think it's a real thing. I think that, I'm like, where to even begin with this? That, I think whenever you go into a workshop opportunity, it can be a question of, what are my goals for this workshop? Why do I need a workshop? What am I hoping to get out of this? And I think sometimes what can happen is going into a workshop, and even if you have goals, of that not being communicated, and then the group, again, when you put together a workshop of actors and everybody, it's because, these are really talented people who can work on new work and have great ideas. But sometimes, especially like later in the process, it's like, you don't need that. That's not actually helpful. And some writers are really good at being like, cool, thanks for all of this information. I'm going to just leave it right there on the floor. And some are like, oh my God, I got all this feedback and now I have to rewrite the play. And so again, I think what a dramaturg and director can do is really set those goals. And if the goal is like, we're not intending to restructure this whole play, our goal for this is to work the first scene, or figure out how projections work in this show, or, a specific element, and really clearly both communicating that and holding the line about that in the room with the other artists, of, being able to say, like, this is what we're here working on. I'm sure people have opinions and ideas and, things they, if they were the writer would want to focus on, but they're not. And this is what we're focusing on, and trying very hard to keep conversation directed at the actual goals for the workshop, because then you're actually, if you're having whatever, 2, 3, 4 workshops, you are moving the piece forward in a very intentional way. And maybe it does need that many workshops for the specific goals, but that you're not workshopping the whole play over and over again every single time. And so I think that is one place that it can get caught up, is when goals and sort of parameters, both for the work on the piece, but also the intention of all the artists in the room, are not articulated and people are not held to that. But yeah, it can be tricky. It can be very tricky getting that production. It's hard. Like institutions that want to develop a work but never want to produce it, which happens, and developmental opportunities are wonderful. And I'm so grateful that there are places out there either who solely develop work, or, institutions that develop work. But it can be a dark abyss to get caught into.
Right. It's something I think about all the time, as a director who works on a lot of new plays, and an artistic director that tries to produce a lot of new plays, and understanding the scale of different kinds of developmental processes and what do they mean. And obviously, for Forward, we're talking as a small regional professional theater working with union actors, we can, start with, oh, this is brand new. Does it help you to get a bunch of non-equity actors who were paying a modest stipend to jump on a Zoom or sit in a room, and no one's doing any advanced prep? We're just reading it out loud. So you can hear these voices as spoken by humans instead of just by yourself, reading out loud. And that's something that can be pretty inexpensive and happen really quick and dirty, but you're not working on the piece. You're literally reading out loud for the playwright to just hear it and go, oh, I like how that sounds. I don't like how that sounds. There's a lot of those, we call them 11-hour readings, where it's on a stage reading contract through Equity, and you've got a total of 11 hours. You can end with reading out loud in front of an audience, invited guests, or not. You could just spend the time working. But again, 11 hours, it's pretty much just enough time to read it out loud, but with a little bit of sculpting from a director where the actors can ask questions and get a little input from the playwright and the director on how should I read this, right? So you might get a slightly more educated reading for the playwright to then take in. Then we go to a 29-hour reading where you can do some rewriting. You can do some rewriting in the room if you want to. And I think, to your point, Deanie, having a really clear goal, this is the thing we're going to focus on with this, because we don't have time to address all the needs of a brand new play in a 29-hour reading. And then we can go into the kinds of things I worked on in my days in New York working in commercial theater, where it's like, oh, we're going to do a 6-week workshop, and we're going to actually do some staging and play with projections or play with music and really work on something. And as a director, figuring out how to support a playwright through their expectations and how can we address them, support them, and not get distracted by, ooh, here's a shiny thing we could work on right now. But that wasn't our plan. That wasn't our goal. It's delicate. And again, communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is again where a dramaturg can be a great resource to be like, great, that is a really shiny thing. And that's a good note. We're going to put that down for later. And we're going to focus back on, the thing that we came here for. But again, sort of being just being that person who can kind of collect and keep track of all this stuff, keep everybody on the line and be like, there will be time. I think, you're never guaranteed the next opportunity, but if you're working with a dramaturg, it's like, there's always going to be more opportunity to keep developing it. And you don't have to do everything in this one workshop. I mean, I've gone into prepared to go into workshops, and writers have had 15 things they want to focus on. And I'm like, I love that you're so aware of your piece and you're so enthusiastic and ambitious. That is not going to happen, but love the ideas. Let's see if some of these things are actually one item, and let's prioritize these and see what actually needs to be done in a room and what things you can just do on your own. Can be very helpful.
I mean,
there you go. The importance of a dramaturg
right there. Yep.
Yeah.
And balancing ambition and pragmatism.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's what I was going to say. It's like with books, people seem to get it. Writers will grouse, but they understand when a publisher through the agent says, you have to get this down to 125,000 words. It's going to be 125,000 words, and you're going to lose some really great things in the process of doing that. But that's the book that's going to sell, and I wonder whether we'd be in a better place in American theater if more plays went to production much more quickly than they did, rather than having this illusion of perfectionism surrounding them, this sense that you have to get everything right, which, as we've talked about, ultimately means you get more things wrong by overworking something. And you lose that pragmatism, right? I mean, there's no play that's going to have all the bells and whistles. That's why I love readings, because you can throw the design stuff to the side. Sorry, designers, and just focus on the words, And because if you don't have those right, all the bells and whistles in the world aren't going to make a difference. Right. Sorry, that wasn't a question.
No, that was good.
I think you touched on something so important, which is this. I'm sure other institutions do this, but the Milwaukee Rep includes, as part of their new play development, what is considered a new play at the Rep, also includes second productions. Mm-hmm. And I think second productions are so crucial to the development, the longevity of a new play, because I think we still have this false idea of like the shininess of a world premiere, which of course, obviously, as part of World Premiere Wisconsin, we think that's awesome and we love it and we want to hype it. But I think that there are things about your play that you just will not know until it is fully produced in front of an audience. And then not even just that, but has multiple performances. And, even like The Crack, I learned so much in like those previews. Again, previews are so important, especially for a new play. And then there were things that we learned just from the run of it. And, if we get the chance to do it again, things that we might change both in the writing and in the staging of it. And so I think second productions are so crucial. And I wish that, institutions would, again, I know some of it has to do with money and availability of writers, but like the institutions would see world premieres as part of the development process and an opportunity to show, again, a piece as refined as you can make it at the time, knowing that it is a living thing that may need more work. I know that when I have worked with writers who do that. I'm sure Lauren Gunderson has also done that you have been a really, really crucial collaborator in doing world premieres with her. An opportunity, this is Lauren Gunderson. Her plays are going to have an extended life. And I think it's essential, especially in these sort of like regional audiences, which are going to be the like backbone of the life of these plays, to have these second productions. I'm currently working on McNeil at Milwaukee Rep by Ed Akhtar, and that had its world premiere on Broadway. And like, listen, I didn't see it, so I'm speaking from a place of not as much context. But I think that play, for many reasons, did not necessarily get the room to breathe and become what it could be in the sort of the box of Broadway and stardom. And I think the second production here at the Rep is an opportunity to try things that, even though they had a lot more money on Broadway, just try things that they weren't able to do. And also to craft this play for a regional style theater and regional audiences, which are, again, going to be the majority of probably the institutions and audiences that will continue the life of this play. But there have been, numerous other sort of second productions that I've worked on that, sometimes the writers do a lot of rewriting and sometimes they're just tweaking stuff. But Mrs. Christie by Heidi Armbruster that we're doing as well, has had several productions, and every production she has changed things about the script. And I think she's just learning more and more as she goes. And I think it's such a wonderful opportunity, but I do think there's still a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, Mike, but just like there's this sort of like preciousness about the world premiere. And then the second production just doesn't have that shine about it. It's very weird.
And you probably know it, Deanie. There's a book by the late, great Jonathan Miller, called Subsequent Performances. And it wasn't dealing specifically with this issue, but it is dealing with the way in which every single subsequent production of anything is a new play. Yep. And should be treated as a new play, one that is sort of in dialogue with what's gone before. I mean, that's true of Shakespeare. It's true of stuff that just opened yesterday. And to think about it in that way, to me, feels truer to what theater is all about, which is this living, organic, evolving entity. And it pays homage to what happens in a room in that kind of way. So yeah, I'm with you 1,000.
I love that.
1,000%. I would love it if everybody, I didn't realize that the Rep was doing that, and every company, I think we do that too, don't we? Don't we count second premieres?
It's wonderful.
We do.
Yeah. And they should be. I mean, that's what they are.
Yeah. We've been going for a while. I'm gonna tie us up. We could clearly continue
this conversation
for long hours.
Continue. Yeah.
But I think if nothing else, I think this conversation, for me at least, highlights how thrilling new work is, and new can extend, as you say, to second or third productions. And it is a celebration of the liveness and uniqueness of our art form, that when you go to see something, you are seeing something that nobody else except the people there that night are seeing. And newer work, I think, elevates that feeling of specialness. And so dramaturgs help us get those experiences. We are so grateful to them. Deanie, thank you for helping explain what dramaturgs do.
My pleasure.
I hope that this conversation makes folks listening even more excited to see some new work, to come out and support all the artists who are creating things as part of World Premiere Wisconsin, or anywhere that you may be listening from. And with that, I do think we will say that this is it for this episode of Theater Forward. Thank you, Deanie.
Thank you for having me. I love nothing more than talking about new work with amazing artists that I admire.
Love it. Well, this has been a conversation about theater in Wisconsin, the Midwest, and America. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jen Uphoff-Gray.
And I'm Julie Swenson.
And I'm Mike Fisher. Our podcast is produced, as always, by Scott Hayden. You can follow us or share your thoughts on Facebook. That's at Theater Forward is where you'll find us, as always, at both Milwaukee Repertory Theater and at Forward Theater, and at most good regional theaters. Theater is spelled properly with an ER.
You're so controversial, Mike. If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to subscribe to us, and be sure to leave a comment. We would love to hear from you.
We are so grateful to have you listening, and we will be back soon for another Theater Forward conversation.